Welcome back to Keep Trucking Personal. My name is Tyler Keevy, and I'm your host. Before we go any further, I just want to take and give a quick heads up. Over the next 4 weeks, we're going to replay some highlight episodes and conversations that still matter and are still relevant and apply today, just as they did when they first aired. And while those episodes run, we're going to redefine our intro and our outro, and more importantly, keep developing content that keeps this podcast sharp and relevant and worthy of your time. So this isn't a pause, this is a reload.
Welcome to Keep Trucking Personal. My name is Tyler Keevy and I'm your host. Last week, I was on the opposite side of this microphone and I was the one being asked the questions, and it felt a little bit different. So I feel like I was on vacation for a week, but I'm back and I got a guest that I am excited to dive into all kinds of questions. I've known him for a really long time. I think it gets away from me sometimes, but I think I've known him longer than it's been in high school. I feel like I met this guest, and so we have a lot. It goes deep. Michael Hansen, Director of Fleet and Safety, welcome.
Howdy, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. Excited to finally make my debut here. So
yeah, I'm telling you, I thought about this when we first came up with the idea of the podcast. I wrote down a bunch of guests, like these are people that I want to get on there, and I've been saving yours just because it's kind of got that. I know it's going to have energy. I'm excited for what we have to learn about you. But I think to start, let's learn a little bit more about who Michael Hansen is, your family, how you got into trucking. You kind of got a similar story to mine, not almost exactly maybe the same, but very similar. So just tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I was happy to get a notification about this yesterday. So I kind of just was thinking in my head, I have so many stories and so much ways I got to where I am today, but that I couldn't fit in all in one podcast. But, the nuts and bolts to it is my family, my Hansen family. My dad's been in trucking his entire life, as long as I've ever known him. Our whole family's been around that. My mom's been, for the most part, a stay-at-home mom since we were born, really, and Pops went out trucking. That's how we made it work. And really, it started there. It's going out to the shop with my dad, whether I liked it or not, go out and wrench, or, you start in the young years when you're excited about all this stuff. Like, how do you do this? I want to be able to, hey, when can I? You're not old enough yet, Well, when can I grease? When can I do this stuff? So started, many people have already heard the story, but for those who haven't, it started as soon as I could hold a wash mitt. I was out washing. My job was the rims and the chrome. Yep. That's all I got. I didn't get the paint because you didn't want sand in the wash mitt and all that. So my duties were very specific when it came to washing our trucks. And then I evolved, and then I got the whole thing, and I got the paint. So that was a big step for me, like, yes, I can finally wash the whole trucks myself. And then it's like, all right, now I'm old enough to hold a grease gun. All right, now you're greasing and washing. And so, the evolution started from there, really, and just could hold a wrench, you start wrenching. So as soon as I could hold a Class A, we were trucking. It just started that stage of it, and by my dad just always wanting to work. Customers were always important, and that's kind of where my journey began. And then I got my license right when I was 18 when I could. Back then we didn't need school. If you had a semi, you could just take your skill and go down to the DMV and take your permit test. And as soon as you felt up for going to take the road test, you were doing it. So as soon as I turned 18, we were set up for that, and then away we went. So then it was kind of do everything now. Now you really start to feel how a business is ran. I was so young and probably well immature, obviously, in that time frame too, but starts developing you right there. And then that's kind of where it started going from there. So did you meet,
well, obviously you met Brianna in high school, right? Or was it earlier than that? Your wife now, or was it middle school?
Yep. So I have a wife and 2 boys, Maverick and Maxwell, and my wife Brianna. Maverick's 6 and Maxwell's 4. So, but Brianna and I met. I was a junior in high school, so she was in 9th grade at the time. I was transitioning from a sophomore into a junior. She was transitioning from a freshman into a sophomore, and so on and so forth.
So she grew up with trucking too. So she's no stranger to what it takes when you're out there.
many nights of, yeah, I'm going to be home Friday night. All right, we got the weekend, and it doesn't happen. Or, hey, we got to go wrench, or 4 hours late because I get home and we got tires to change, or whatever the case is. So it's been ingrained into her, pretty much our entire existence as well. So it's really just all of our lives evolve around the trucking industry. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's funny because obviously when Caitlin and I got married, she was still learning a little bit about like, what is this industry that never stops, right? Like she was in logistics prior to us getting together, and she had a gist. And I think everybody's like, you go home on the weekend, or you, like you said, you park your truck, you're done. But not really. When it's a family business, it turns into, hey, you got to change these tires so this truck can leave, or you're trying. I've been to your house. Like I said, we met a long time ago. And I remember when you had the Moffett or forklift on the back of your truck or trailer, whichever setup you were using. And I think it was Friday night or Saturday. Me and you were like, we want to enjoy the weekend, but we're going to transfer a load. And me and you were on the forklift together, transferring a load, doing whatever it takes. And so it always meshes in, right? There's no like, leave it for the next day or leave it for next week, because like you said, you're whether your dad or somebody's calling you saying this driver needs to leave, and you're the one holding the process up, it never goes well.
No, it doesn't, and it's stuff I had to learn the hard way, through our younger years and stuff. And I'm sure my dad is listening right now, being like, "Oh yeah, I remember that, like it was tough. Like, Michael, come on, we got to do this." But I mean, he just kept pushing me, and just my whole family. I mean, it was our family business, so that's just how it was. But it's interesting when you say like how your wife and my wife, they come into it. And my wife is very, very schedule oriented. Like, she just has to have a schedule. And we met, like, it was, all right, what time are you going to be here? Because my parents are having dinner and they eat at 5, and I'm like, yeah, I should be home at 5, whatever, and all good. Well, our family, my side of the family, we just don't plan times. Like, if we say we're having dinner at 3, it's probably 7. It's just how it is. It's just the way we were brought up. And it took my wife a learning curve, to where we found a balance now. Like, all right, which is good. It's more scheduled a little bit, but she even is like, had to change how she was a little bit to have our relationship work through this industry, right? Because it's not always planned. Like, you can't plan everything. The minute you do, a wrench comes in and there goes the plan. But it's good to be able to have that balance. But it was interesting to see how two families have to adjust to make it work for our industry and our jobs, our careers.
Yeah, and like I said, I think a lot of people don't realize the industry and what it's like and how fast paced it is. And, and everybody's family, like, why can't he make it to this event at 3:00 on Saturday? And you're like, I just got into town. Cause I mean, you kind of stopped right when you got into trucking, but you've traveled the country, right? Like you've done what I thought was really unique is going into Canada a lot. And that's just a unique process on its own. And I know you're very familiar with crossing into Canada and dealing with customs. And what is it, the RCMP, or what do they call the police up there?
It's the Ministry of Transportation is like our DOT, and then you got the OPP, which is the Ontario Provincial Police. So their state patrols, OPP, and then Ministry of Transportation. There's their DOT, Ministry of Forestry, so on and so forth. So
yeah, but a little different than the typical lower 48, and you're well versed there. And then, like I said, you've been able to travel down into all over the country. And I think that's what makes you succeed so fast in any position that you go into, especially in trucking, is you have that hands-on experience. You've been there, done it. Like I said, even if it's running a forklift, unloading your trailer up in the bush in Canada, where nothing probably went as planned, and you had, it's an easy job site, pull in, and you're like, no, this is not meant for a truck. I remember some of your stories telling me that, where you're like, this is the worst day because I was not supposed to be there with the truck.
Yeah. And there's something to that, because I was thinking of what excelled me that helped me the most, I would say, in my driving career would be I used to deliver home deliveries for a company, a building products company. And once the Canadian dollar was stronger than the U.S., the Canadians would come down and just buy house packages, foam, you named it. They would just save so much just from the pricing, and then you do the exchange on top of that. I mean, I was going into Northern Ontario, all over Ontario, really, 6 days a week. And the interesting part of it was when I got my license, I told my dad, I'm not doing this run. Like, I'm not experienced enough. It's a longer trailer. I got a forklift. I got different materials I have to tie down all the time, because I could be hauling cabinets one day and then green treat lumber for decks another day. You know, it didn't matter. It was such a vast range of products that I didn't feel comfortable doing it right when I got my license. So that was one of my stipulations. Like, I want to do some end dump, get comfortable with the truck. And I think that lasted about a month. And then boom, guess what? I'm on this home delivery run, and I'm going up, and you don't know where you're going. You know that at this time, the customer that we were hauling for would print out MapQuest maps. You know, it was still at that time, and then you still had your phone a little bit, so you know, some TomTom GPSs, but I never knew where I was going as far as what I was gonna run into on the site, if a semi would even fit in the site, if I can get stuff down the road, roof trusses that are 40 feet long, 50 feet long. I gotta get them down a 12-foot wide driveway, but it really helped me hone in my skills, because I had to. There wasn't a matter of, hey, I'm up in Canada, I can't do this. That wasn't an option. It was, get it done. You got to do it. You're the guy.
Phone service is probably even spotty at best with some of those locations you went to.
Yep, I had to have a Canadian phone at that time. It wasn't like it is now where you could just go wherever, but we had two phones, one for the Canadian package and one for here, but it was strictly for calling. So, but you'd be delivering a garage package to somebody who doesn't even know what a semi looks like, and they're like, yeah, there's plenty of room. I had a concrete truck come in here, and next thing you know, I get there and I'm like, what are you thinking? Like, I cannot, do this. Or I have a lot of people, let me in the truck, I'll drive it in there. I said, all right, well, you can pay for all the body damage, from destroying my truck. So that, I feel that was probably what excelled me into the driving part, really, really pushed me forward, because the things I seen and the issues I had to deal with on my own and teach myself on some of these scenarios I was putting myself into or put into, that just really exploded it and opened my eyes. So then when I eventually did go OTR, it's like, dude, I'm pulling in this huge concrete lot, man. Yeah. This is nice. Like, they unload me and load me. Like, whoa. Like,
directions are actually accurate. And
when I was loading these home deliveries, I was even having to teach these guys, the college kids loading you, so they're just set it on there. Well, we have to strategically load some of these sometimes. So it was even helping me gain that knowledge of how to load a trailer correctly and be legal and all of that stuff. It was a super valuable experience for me. And then, really set myself up for, I had all the confidence in the world to go wherever. Mm-hmm. Wherever the load wanted me to go, or wherever I had to go for that trip, I had a whole different swagger, I guess, to me, where I felt a lot more confident because of the things I did leading up to it.
Well, and I will say, if anyone has not crossed into Canada, there's a feeling of like intensity dealing with customs agents, and it's not that you're doing anything illegal. And there may be a blemish on your paperwork and it hangs you up, or there may not be, and you're good to cross right through, but it always feels like you're getting that like squinty eye look at you. Like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you here? And it changes your perspective. So like you said, you've done that crazy Ontario bush trucking, almost, I'd like to call it, dealt with customs agents all the time and what it takes to get through there, and them probably tearing your truck apart very often to say, like, because you just sometimes draw that card and they're like, pull into this bay, we're going to look for drugs or guns or something, you maybe fish, I don't know, whatever you may be smuggling back from Ontario. But you've dealt with that pressure. Then you, like you said, you get into more of a general freight type commodity and you're like, walk in the park. Like, I'm ready to go. I have interstates that are wide open. They're not, windy back and forth. I have big parking lots. I'm comfortable doing all this. I think it leads so well into your current role and position, because you can help the drivers and you've been there and you're experienced in it. And by no means are you tooting your horn, but you're very much grounded when it's like, no, don't pull the wool over my eyes. I've been there, or I know what's going on. Or on the opposite of the coin, I'm here to help you. And I can explain this because I'm very familiar with flatbed, right? You've tied down from the biggest trusses that are hanging off the side of your truck to styrofoam and things that you need to be very gentle when you're securing. Like, you've got a deep resume when it comes to the type of freight and what you've done.
yeah, I look back on it today and some of the frustrations I had all going through all them, it's like, man, I was super frustrated about that. And to look back and now I can appreciate all of that a lot more just because of just some of the things you just shared right there, that it gave me some experience that I wouldn't get anywhere else. I wouldn't have had that probably confidence after that, and to be able to use that in my today everyday activities today. I mean, I'm still gaining knowledge every single day, but to use anything that hey, this has happened to me before, I understand. Those do help to make a bad situation good or fix that situation. It's definitely helps for me to be able to put myself in the shoes of anybody, whether it's a technician, operation dispatch, or a driver or anything like that. It's nice to be able to relate back to them, maybe not in that exact scenario, but a scenario like it, to help Kiwi Bros as far as use my knowledge for good instead of just acting like, some people get a chip on their shoulder and they're the best. And I want to be able to just help people instead of, saying, this is how you do it. Like, I want to be able to help everybody enjoy the industry I love a lot. I mean, that's at the end of the day, I still hold very true to this industry because it's just been such a huge part of my life and my family's life. So,
yeah. And now, like I said, leading up to what your current role is, you lead the two most important parts of our company, the safety department and the fleet department. And I don't think people realize how much goes into that because we take for granted. And for me personally, I really got to have a great appreciation just last weekend when I took one of our Western Stars and Jack. So this is Jack's first time being in a truck. I haven't, Austin, she's 7 now, but I've never brought her in a truck. I've really let them just be kids, right? I've just let them be who they are. And they kind of have an idea of what daddy does or where he works because they drop me off occasionally. But bringing Jack in the truck, right? So he's in there. The shop had cleaned it very nice. It was like immaculate. So I felt like this is a brand new truck, had 36,000 miles on it. And when I was driving it with Motive and it was all installed and all the features of the truck, I was like just super grateful. I'm like, this thing is loaded. Like I could do this job. If I was to get a call and say, hey, you got to head to California, this load's got to go. And I was in the setup I had, I'm like, this thing is ready. Like I'm ready to go. Jack, I could just tighten his seatbelt a little more and we're out of here. And it gave me a big appreciation, but we forget how that gets to where it is. We forget the time, sweat, sometimes, challenging nights where you're like, no, this has to be this way or it's not going to work for the company. And all of that rolled up all the way down to when I got to drive it just to this little event for kids to climb in and out of the truck, for them to experience what a semi is. You are very important when it comes to that role. You help coordinate that. What is that like? And what kind of, just tell us more about what you do day to day and how even for me, it's more curious. I'm not as equipped to understand how to spec out a truck like you are. So you're even educating me right now.
Whenever, and we have to place an order, obviously you look at our history of our trucks here at Kiwi Bros just on how much the industry's changed, technology has changed. It used to be the motor, transmission, and some tires, right, on a truck. And it's not quite that anymore. It's, a lot of what does our company need? What are some of the struggles we see from our past? Those come into play. What are some new technologies? But really starting with our OEMs. What do we offer first and foremost? A lot of that stuff comes from our OEM dealerships and a good sales staff too. To have a salesman that can help you. All right, this company's kind of doing this company's doing that. But really, what are we seeing out in our fleet? What am I hearing back from operations? Then we start building. We already know, by at this time, what brand we're going to choose, things like that, to really put a truck together. And at the end of the day, to be brutally honest, some of it's still a gamble. You got to remember when you're making a decision, you're going to be doing it times 30 to 100 to 150, right? So you got to play that balance of, all right, let's do this small tweak. And we've tested a few of these and we've had good results, and hopefully that stays through. But a lot of it is keep our specs close to what we've already built off of. It's now fine tuning. I'd say the toughest one is an actual model change of a truck. Mm-hmm. When we decide to change from a model, for instance, our 567s. We've ran 567s forever, and we know, all right, what we didn't like about the earlier spec, what we do, and you do that adjustment. But now now we're going to switch to 579s and some other ones. Things do change, bodies, whether set back front axle, set forward front axle, so many different variations when you go into model, and then you kind of get your base one and we run it, see how that worked. And a lot of it is just feedback from what breaks on a truck. A lot of people, I see frustration when we pull things away from a truck, some of the interior packages and things like that. A lot of it comes to what breaks a lot, what gets damaged inside a cab, what gets damaged outside of a cab. How can we lower those areas of where our history, really our history specs our trucks for us,
Mm-hmm.
Kind of just like the trucking industry itself. What happened in our history to make all these rules and regulations today? It's our history of what us as truckers did and have done that are paving the way for our future, right? Same thing with our trucks. What happened? What did we not like about this spec? What are driver frustrations about this spec? And unfortunately, when you have one, you're stuck with it for, anywhere from 3 to 6 years. I mean, That's just depending on the market and whatnot. But so that's always something that's always in the back of our minds. That's where, really a company comes together and you start feeling out what works and what doesn't, but still has a quality product on the road. What's going to keep us up and running? Driver comforts are still there.
Mm-hmm.
The OEMs are realizing that more and more, which I like to see as well. They ask for fleets a lot more feedback these days than I have seen in a long time, because I feel they really see that we got to make sure we have a good running product, but drivers like it as well, because drivers sell the trucks, right? That's even on resale for guys going to be owner ops. You got to be conscious of that when you're speccing a truck. You want something that's still tantalizing for that outside market, but yet, still realistic for a fleet market. So Lots of stuff that goes into that. But
well, and for a normal person going to buy a car, right, you might get 4 or 5 options on a dealership lot, or maybe you pick 10 dealers that you're going to choose a car, but you get kind of a flavor the same, but you might have a different color interior. That, like you said, when it comes to the truck, you're looking at the spec. How many pages is one spec? I mean, maybe it's not a lot, but it's a lot on those pages.
Yeah, the spec sheets can be quite daunting in itself, and two, like a lot of that is you change one thing on a spec and it could change 5 other things. So it is daunting when you're going through some of them spec sheets, and they're about anywhere from 40 to 40 pages or so.
Yeah.
But
that's big in my book.
And there's different coatings, and a lot of it's just generic stuff. Like, you kind of learn what pages to a spec sheet you got to kind of monitor and watch where things change. If we do this change, it changes this. But a lot of things are too parts wise. We have to take that in consideration. I don't want to supply 15 different parts for 15 different trucks. If I'm ordering a bunch of Freightliner Cascadias, I want them the same so I can put into inventory this seat or this particular fridge. I don't have a bunch of different fridges. So when our drivers come in, we can make sure we have those parts to get our trucks back on the road faster. So lots of things on the speccing side of the world and how we make those decisions and navigate through them.
Well, and that's just the practical use. Then you get into, like, for example, safety, right? So then you're looking at, okay, this is the application. The truck needs to be set up for a flatbed, set up for a headache rack, set up for this. That's the application. Then you get into, okay, how do we become the safest company? And then you're working through those parameters, and it just continues to evolve. And then you have, from an operations perspective and a finance perspective, saying, okay, how do we get more fuel economy out of this truck? So you got the driver in mind, you have the application in mind, you have safety in mind, and then you have people putting pressure on you over here to be the most economic truck, whether it's cost up front or it's the operating cost. So you literally have all of these different angles to slice it, and then to try find the one that meets and fits for everyone. And it's not easy. Like I said, I've witnessed just a few of those spec sheets. It hasn't really been my ball of wax. Derek and you have done that. And like I said, I have a big appreciation, even more so than ever, just in my last little trip. It wasn't very many miles. I put 20 miles on. So setting the world on fire there, but it was more than enough to give me that appreciation. When you do all of that work, right? Like we could probably talk about this for hours, but we'll focus. The truck is set up. It's the safest, most economic vehicle it can be. Moving into the safety side of the world now, this is no easy feat either, because safety isn't once you order it, you have it for 5 years. Yes, some of the tools we order or purchase might be with us for several years under contract, but when it comes to safety culture and being a safe company, it's everlasting. It never stops, right? It's layered into everything you do. It's layered into every thought. I'm assuming you probably are very similar to myself. You wake up in the morning and your day starts very well if you didn't have any events happen overnight that needed your attention. That's, I think, a stigma many in this industry deal with. And I'm confident that we are working against that. We are going to say, well, we're always trying to do the right thing to be safe, but that stress is going to go away because we are safe. We are a safe company. And that takes a lot of work. It's not just plug and play. Hey, we put an extra lane mitigation system on the truck. No, it's not as easy as that. Like, it doesn't just fix itself. It's you managing it and having that experience behind the wheel. You can, relate to any driver for that matter of what happened in the situation. We're always trying to defend the driver, but there is times where you have to say, did we make the right decision, and work through that whole workflow process. What is it like being on top of that safety side? I'm sure there's a lot of stress. Like, I'm sure it's.
Yeah, no, it's not roses and rainbows anytime. You're exactly right. You wake up, and I have text message alerts set up on my phone. So if we ever have a collision, it automatically texts me saying there's a collision. And anytime I see them, I hold my breath and hope it's a deer hit or a blowout steer or something like that. But yeah, that's it really sets the tone for your day. But at the same time, you got to remember that there's a lot of people relying on us to keep our cool and be professional and navigate through whatever the challenge is. So that's first of the challenge, is to keep our composure, stay professional as much as we can. Tensions get high in those situations, but really it's rely on our equipment. Yes, we have lane mitigation. I drove one of those actually for my dad, and we're in the early stages of them. So I thought I found the good benefits and the bad benefits, but technology is improving, so they've come a long way. But to always have that balance, we always defend our drivers. That's first and foremost. Anybody who's come into my office and talked to me, any time a bad situation happens, whether it's our fault, anybody whose fault it is, let's debrief. We got to go to bat for our driver here, whether he's in the wrong, he or she's in the wrong or right. It is what it is. That's it's time to go to work. And honesty obviously makes it a lot easier, when we're just transparent and honest and putting all that data together. And how can we make a bad situation into a good situation or a learning situation? Probably in the most recent couple of years here, I've accepted that a lot better than I have in previous years. That doesn't matter if we fire somebody out of our truck for a safety event, they could go get in somebody else's truck and kill my family just as easy, or hurt somebody else's family just as easy. So to change our gearing of, all right, no, the answer is not just to fire this person. Let's figure out why this happened, how it happened, and maybe we can work with the guy to make options to where this won't happen again and learn from our mistakes and things like that. You definitely see the drivers that come in that they want to do better, and and those are the ones I'm all in for. There's other ones that are tougher than others, but at the end of the day, what I always hang my hat on is most of the stuff we're enforcing is the law. It's not stuff Michael's made up or Tyler Keevy's made up or Keevy Bros itself is made up. No, we're just abiding by the laws, again, that what we did to pave the way, right? All of the stuff my dad used to do. And I'm going to pull out an old name here, but Wayne Newgren, I had old stories from Wayne Newgren of how truckers did things back in the day. It's all of the things that we've done that hasn't changed in the trucking industry. Now we're giving that power to the FMCSA or the government to put these regulations onto us because they didn't see a change and they see problems out on the road and people not obeying the law. So at the end of the day, that's where I always hang my hat on, that I'm doing the right thing because it's the law. And we've seen too many times of what happens when we don't follow the law. And again, learning from what we've done in our past, how that paves our future. And that's really the way I look at it. And I put my jeans on one leg at a time every morning. And that's kind of how that's my security blanket, is to know that I'm just following the law.
Yep. Well, and I'm extremely grateful. And once we so for those of you that do not know what Motive is our telematics, right? And it's not just telematics, GPS, ELD, it's a safety tool. And through that safety function, a driver could trigger an event that may be following too close or a hard brake, many types of events. But what I'm trying to say on the opposite side of that coin is I'm extremely proud with how many good drivers we have. Like, I know in this part, when we were partnering with Motive to say, hey, this is where we're going and where we're headed, I didn't know. It was very like uncharted territories. You're like, you don't know what your company's like. Like, we're very proud and humble, and we know that we can get better in spots, but you're like, just what is our company going to look like when we start to measure it on this level? And now that we're here, I'm like, we were doing a really good job. And now we have an additional level to help us get even better. And I'm excited. Like you said, in the past few years, there's always been that time where you're like, we couldn't help the driver because we just didn't know. We were in the dark. And now everything is very transparent, from the company side to the driver to the company. It's very transparent. And I think even as a driver, you're in an accident, like, they're never fun, right? Like you said, that's a high pressure situation. But now we can help you so fast. Like, we're ready. Like you said, it's boots on the ground, time to go to work. If that collision happens, doesn't matter what it is. And the debrief is a different part of managing a critical accident. That accident happens, there's right out the gate 3-4 people that are already like, they've been notified right when it happened. We're going to work to make sure A, you're taken care of, and B, the person, or whether it's a deer or a person, that other side of the collision is taken care of, because we want everyone to be safe. And it's just been that, like you said, security blanket earlier. It makes me feel another level of comfortable. Like, this industry you're a professional for a reason, right? You had to get your license. You had to go through testing. There's many things. Now you're operating an 80,000 pound vehicle. We get to have high standards, and that's what's exciting. You get to be that premier carrier, because that's what we pride ourselves on, is how do we get here, and how do we get here, and how do we get here, and keep evolving. And like you said, that truck investment on the speccing side is part of that, because you can't just change all your specs like, oh, wake up today, we're going to put all this on all of our trucks. No, it's a 5-year plan. It's okay, we're getting ready for the next wave of 5 years with these trucks. What are we going to do to make sure that this fits with where we're headed? And you've done very well there championing that, because some of the progressive thinking you were doing was before we even had Motive in our eyes. You were like, I have to take control of safety, and I'm fortunate for you having control of fleet and safety, because you're able to blend it. You're like, okay, I can make a very nice truck with a very strong safety features and put that together. And you did that before we even got to Motive. And now, like I said, back to when I was driving those 20 miles last weekend, I was like, I am set up for success. Like, I have all of the features I need, all the amenities in the truck. The thing is, drives like a Cadillac. Even Jack, he's up there waving to every car he could see. Even when they were in the parking lot a quarter mile away, he thought like he's on top of the world. And I can share that same feeling. I felt the same way. So there's just a lot of work you've put in. And that's, like I said, I'm just grateful to see your knowledge and experience, and from the Canadian side to all of it, build up to where you are now and what you've accomplished.
Yeah, no, and I mean, thanks to Kiwi Bros for giving me the opportunity to do that, and really just, again, taking the stuff that was lucky enough to learn at a young age, and now put it into actions on a whole different scale and different company, right? Mm-hmm. But those are, a blessing for me to be able to even do this kind of stuff and to navigate through this. But the one thing I want to touch on is with the accidents of response and everything else like that, and be professional out there, is I just experienced this just in my own family. One of my nieces got her permit. And, you just see, and I'm watching all my nieces and nephews get their permits, and it's like, go take your test, boom, here you go. And I'm like, wow, they're giving them keys. All right. And it's something to take from that for as far as the truck driver aspect is we have to remember all the, the four-wheelers on the road and all the personal vehicles and people hauling boats, big, huge RVs. You don't need any extra training for that. You don't, I mean, you got to remember that these people out there do not know the size of a semi, or they don't get, drug tested and randoms and all of this stuff. There's nothing of that going on in our personal vehicles. And it's our job as truck drivers to make sure we're being defensive, because we're the professionals here and we have everything to lose. And it's a lot easier to take a life with a big rig than it is in a four-wheeler. So, that's why we have so many regulations, but really taking consideration when that car wants to cut you off and you're mad, and it's like, you got to remember that they're oblivious, they just don't. And so those are the big things, is just remember that we are the professionals and we have a Class A to prove it.
Well, I think that leads us right into the next spot. There's two spots. We'll separate this because, like I said, you're in charge of both. On the safety side of the world, how does a driver get a better safety score? How do they buy into the whole process that we're bought into, me and you, right? Like we're committed, and we eat, sleep, and breathe this process now, and it's ingrained into the top level. But you're a new driver here. You've never dealt with any of this technology, and you're kind of like, hey, old school, right? Like I don't need this. I'm a good driver. There's no need for you to be putting this in my truck. My record's clean. All this. What advice would you give a driver coming here? Say, let's get used to it.
If you were a driver coming through and you just gave me those exact statistics there for yourself, I would say you have no problem. You're going to be a rock star.
Yeah.
It's really in the driver's control. There's nothing that's not in the driver's control. It's up to them on how high they want their score. Keep your cell phone down. I've preached this to many guys, and I'm openly able to admit that I had a cell phone usage problem when I was trucking, and to the point where I had to throw my phone in the sleeper because I couldn't get up and go get it. I had my headset on, but it's like, I cannot do this. I just don't trust myself enough. So keeping your cell phone down, keeping that following distance opened up. Again, what did I just say before this? The cars out there these days, personal vehicles, they don't know that it takes, a lot more distance to stop a big rig than it does their little, their little Honda Civic or whatever. They don't know those things. Should they? Yes, but let's be real, they don't. So increase that following distance. Hard cornering, keep your speed under control. If your speed is correct, you're not going to get a hard cornering event. It's just how it is. That's how the system's set up. Those are the big ones. So, and obviously distraction, it's measuring that. There's distractions every day, all around us, all the time. There's a dog in the cab. I made a video of that. There's just so many things that can distract us from what we're doing, but we also just, remember that you're driving an 80,000 pound rig plus, in most of our applications, or some of our applications, I should say. But if you do those things, you won't even activate an event. And right there, that's, for me, we have plenty of drivers out there. Like you said, I was super, super happy when we don't have a big issue with bad drivers. Thankfully, it's hats off to our drivers and our company as a whole, recruiting all the way down to our training staff, everything. It's showing that we have good people out there. And it's not so much show us who the bad people are. It's who are the people we can work with? Who can we help? Who can we educate to make this a better experience for them and be more profitable for them? It's cool stuff to see, but that would be my advice for that driver, is keep those events down by just not using your cell phone. Use one touch, headset, cell phone holders. I see a lot of guys scores improving after they get just a cell phone holder itself. So now they kind of have it in their cup holder. All right. Tyler Keevy's calling me. Let me hit my one touch and boom. Siri and obviously all of these touch to text options. Those are great options too. A lot of guys utilize, and really those are the big ones. Speed is the biggest one. Speed, and with the side of speed. You got to just slow it down, because that's defensive driving 101.
Yeah. And you had said it best earlier, where it's the law. Everything that we're doing now is just protecting the driver by making sure they're within gauge of the law. Like, hey, make sure you stop at a stop sign, make sure you're not speeding, and so on. And yeah, it really is eye-opening just to see the drivers, like you said, that pride themselves on, I'm a very safe defensive driver, and then their scores are 100. And for me, testing motive and realizing that it's not hard to get an event. Like I had set off my own events. Like you said, we're not perfect here. We're guilty. And I've really gained an extra level of appreciation for those drivers that are peaking it. And yeah, and I think, there's definitely a story to tell for every driver. And if you're on the lower end of that, I think there's opportunity for you to get advice from you. We can partner you with a driver that has a high level score and just take it in, because there's room for improvement. This industry the congestion is getting crazier every city, and so listening to someone or taking advice is a great opportunity. Like I said, we have a lot we could keep going into, but that was a quick, brief overview on the safety on the fleet side of the world. So you are in charge of that. Let's go through and say you're a new driver here. You've left the terminal and tire blows out on the road. Like, what's the best practice to make sure that we fix you as fast as possible?
Yeah, for also you have a blowout, first and foremost, obviously get off into a safe spot. If you can limp it to an exit, that's usually best rule of thumb. Sometimes that's not always an option. I understand, especially with two blowouts, right on the same duals blowout, and now you're down to rims. Scary situation, but in that case, pull off the side of the road, get your triangles out. Make sure that's all in check. If you're not at an exit, obviously, if you're at an exit, still put your triangles out. But then you call our fleet team. Right away, they're going to request pictures. The reason why we do a lot of pictures is there's lots of different tire sizes out there, and there's a lot of struggle out there with the truck stops that bring in the right tire. And again, you don't want the service truck to get all the way out to the truck, and then they have the wrong stuff, right? Then they have to go back to the store, increasing your breakdown time, so on and so forth. So pictures, those are always great options. Grab them. Make sure you're sending that stuff in. The fleet team will, they'll ask you to get up to they'll find a shop. If it's close, get over there. It's a lot faster than a service call, or if there's nothing we can do, we'll get a service call sent out to you. But fleet can be reached by either our phone number or our email. So lots of different options to get that help. But that's pretty much how it starts, is pictures. Pictures is proven to be a big player in our industry these days. With technology that we have, it's just so much easier and faster to be able to see a picture and understand exactly what the driver's dealing with at that particular time. Because no matter what, most blowouts are the same, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes we have a cross member taken out, or sometimes it's a warrantable failure where we send that picture over to the OEM or the tire manufacturer and say, yep, that's a warrantable blowout. Send this over, and they give us our credit, so on and so forth. But pictures is a big one. But our fleet team, I'm really proud of what our fleet team has done, just from the start of my career here to what we've built today with the folks we have. They truly care about our drivers and care about our equipment, and they're there to help. It's a lot for them. They got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of traffic, a lot of calls to field. Just to get into the PM side of the world, they got lots of stuff going on. But our number one priority is our drivers, and if they're in peril, we're there to help. We have a whole team dedicated to that, so you're never alone out there. That's what I can say.
Yeah, great advice. Communicate, right? Pictures, communicate. And I think sometimes drivers may think it's a trust factor, right? Like, why do I have to send you pictures? This is what happened. And that was such a good point. Warranty. Like, we are always trying to do the best thing. And if something failed, we want to get to the root cause of that outside of getting you back up and rolling. That tire blew out. And like you said, there's a warranty issue here, or even with the truck, like somebody with your knowledge, when those pictures come in to the group, you might pick that up and be like, whoa, that's not supposed to happen. Even though it broke, like, I'm going to take this to the OEM and we're going to get to the bottom of this, because it could cause future failures and we want to prevent that. So yeah, another deep, like, we could go all day on this bucket. There's so much to take in, but you do a great job championing both of those. Now I have to ask, because you and I have been able to truck together, which is fun. Like, I think same with Derek, myself, like, we've been able to do trips, whether we were in North Dakota for a summer working, and sometimes it wasn't consistent, but it might've been a week or two here, but we've been able to have a bunch of fun there. We've done truck shows together. We've done we've lived life together just to the fullest extent you can live it. What are some of your favorite trips going out there and trucking?
Well, I think North Dakota, I don't think we'll ever forget that. I mean, that was just a crazy time. The oil boom out there when everything was just nuts. I mean, it was how fast could you do this stuff? And all right, we don't have trucks. We're going out to North Dakota. Dad, Kiwis need us out there.
Yep.
Can we make it happen? Yep, go out there. Like, boom. I mean, that was just an experience in itself of one, growing to know you and Derek even more too. I mean, we knew each other well before that and well after as well, but it was just all around. Met some of your guys' drivers at that time too. That was obviously always going to be a cool one, but outside of the Canada stuff that we already touched on, I mean, that was my home for a long time. I mean, I even had a Canadian accent. Like, people thought I was from Canada. I still have a northern Minnesota accent, but like, it gets real thick if I spend a lot of time in a certain area. Like, it was honestly, I got called like, whereabouts in Thunder Bay are you? Like, okay, like, that's just how it was. But that's a one. But the one cool one for Kiwi Bros, as far as I really enjoyed my trips in the rollback to go do some recoveries. And unfortunately, we had an accident out in Seattle quite a few years ago, and the truck actually was like bent like a banana. And I was driving out there, and I had a spare truck. I was bringing the driver a spare so he could, continue his load, and I was just running the wrecked one back. And I get to the body shop the tow yard, and I'm like looking at this thing like, how is this going to work? Because I just have a rollback with a tow bar. Like, this should almost be like on an actual wrecker, on a hook. And we're sitting, Levi Bailey, our shop foreman there, he was actually trucking in his truck at that time. So he was in Seattle. So he came over and met with me, and we're like, all right, so I'm calling tow truck companies I know, because this is new to us. I mean, we just got these trucks. I did one down to New Mexico, and that was pretty much my first run. And now we're heading out to Seattle to get one, and learning how to counter steer. We had to pick it up by the drives, because that's how our tow bar was designed. So you pick it up with the drives. Well, now the truck is so bent, when I look out my driver's side mirror, all I can see is the back of the headache rack, because it's so far into the oncoming lane, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, what do we do here? How can I make this bent truck straight, And sure enough, you got to counter steer, lock the steering wheel with the seat belt, and so on and so forth. Got it straight, and I didn't have to adjust it. I was pretty proud. Like, me and Levi got her dial, because we didn't have to adjust it. Once we set it, you rule of thumb, you drive down the road, make sure it's riding kind of straight. If you have to do some adjustments, you got to get back in there and adjust the steering wheel. But she drove straight and true, and got to go through 4th of July, all the fun spots through the Rockies there, through Missoula, up through Coeur d'Alene and all that. Like, my dad was big in Coeur d'Alene hauling. Like, he always has stories about coming out there to the East Coast. He had a dedicated run, so it was kind of neat to be able to go out there and experience that stuff. But we didn't have a lot of West Coast or even anything really going west when I worked for my dad when I was trucking, so I didn't get to experience a lot of that. So that was a really, really fun trip for me, and just to experience something I never had before in a situation I never have been in before. So it was just another one of them times where learn as you go and figure it out, and use your past knowledge and resources to figure out a sticky situation.
Yeah. Well, and now you're prepared. Like I said, you've built a huge resume of experience, and now when a situation happens, you're even able to help the tow company. Hey, this is the best way to tow this truck. And this is how I want it done. It's just even
fighting tow invoices to this day. Like, I still argue, we just had one the other week. They had some trouble getting the drive shop. So I'm like, well, that's, this is how you do it. So what's the scoop? Sorry, it took you longer, but take that off our bill or whatever, so on and so forth. It's just,
there's supposed to be
how things you use things you learn that you'd never think you'd ever use again. But now you have that experience to, jab at somebody or help somebody or whatever the case is.
Yeah. Don't get us started on tow bills, right? Like, there's supposed to be passing some law, I think, to help regulate that, because there's some uncharted territories there when you get a bill and you're like, what? No, like that. There's got to be there's an extra digit here that's not supposed to be there. Is this correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they get some boundaries on that so it doesn't roll out of control.
Yeah, it's usually when they do changes like this, it moves at a snail's pace, and eventually it will happen. It's just like everything; it just takes time and data from the history to show that something's out of control, and hopefully they'll put some restrictions on it here come soon.
Definitely. Well, Michael, I have to say it's been a lot of memories leading up to this one, and we're going to continue to make a lot of memories. You have a beautiful family. I've been able to witness all of that happen, from getting married to, like you said, your kids, seeing you help this company grow and lead into the position that you're in now. There's just a lot to look forward to. And I'm very happy that you were able to share your story on this podcast. And I'm hopeful for anyone that listens, you got to know Michael a little bit better, because everyone in this company deals with them. Your truck is going to need maintenance, and you will deal with Michael's team, whether it's just for a regular routine or like we talked about, a tire blowing. But Michael, I have to say thanks for joining. I'm definitely going to have you on another episode, because there's a lot we get to talk about and we still need to talk about. But thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me, and it was a pleasure. And as always, you know where I'm at. So anytime we want to scratch the surface of this history wagon, I guess, we can do that anytime.
A lot of stories, lots of stories, that's for sure. Thank you for tuning in to Keep Trucking Personal. If you've enjoyed today's episode, do not forget to like, share, or comment. I also want to add that we just put our podcast up on YouTube. So if YouTube is a platform that you use, we are there now. If you have any suggestions or feedback, please reach out to us at podcast@kiwibros.com. Until next time, happy trucking.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Keep Trucking Personal. We appreciate you taking the time to explore the heart and soul of Kiwi Brothers Trucking with us. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review to let us know your thoughts. Tune in next time as we continue our journey together, diving deeper into what makes us a community, a catalyst for positive change, and a home for those who aspire to be part of something truly extraordinary. Until then, keep trucking, and we'll catch you on the next episode.